Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. It was a crisp autumn morning in the small town of Maplewood when the unthinkable occurred. Nestled amidst a tapestry of amber and crimson leaves, the community awoke to the bite of chill in the air, the promise of change lingering like the scent of wood smoke drifting through the street. Life in Maplewood had always been predictable, friendly smiles exchanged at the local cafe, children waving as they walked to school, neighbors tending their meticulously landscaped yards. However, on this day, the very fabric of their mundane existence would be torn apart. At approximately 8:15 a.m., a piercing siren shattered the tranquility. Officer Ethan Briggs was the first to respond to the callous, frantic voice on the other end. Barely coherent, reporting a potential missing person. The address led him to a quaint bungalow on Maple Street, shrouded by towering oaks and an unsettling stillness. When he arrived, the front door hung ajar, creaking on its hinges, as though it had been disturbed in a hurry. He stepped inside, the air thick with a sense of dread. The living room was cluttered, a stark contrast to the usually tidy homes of the area. As he moved deeper into the house, the oddities revealed themselves: a toppled chair, a broken vase, an overturned coffee table. A fine layer of dust on the floor was shattered by shoe prints, leading toward a darkened hall. Each step added a weight to his chest. Instinct told him this was not simply a case of someone forgetting to call home. The lingering smell of burnt food wafted from the kitchen, but it was drowned out by a more metallic odor that sent a chill down Ethan's spine, following the sound of muffled cries. He turned the corner towards the bathroom, where time seemed to stop. Blood pooled on the tiled floor, stark against the ceramic white, and a huddled figure lay crumpled beside the tuba woman, her lifeless eyes staring unblinkingly toward the ceiling. Maplewood's peace had been shattered, and in its place, a haunting mystery began to unfold. The victim, the woman on the bathroom floor, was immediately recognizable to the residents of Maplewood. Jennifer Mills, a beloved elementary school teacher, was known for her infectious laughter and a passion for nurturing young minds. The shockwave of her death would soon spread throughout the community, shaking the foundations of the peaceful life they had cherished. As Officer Briggs crouched beside her, he observed the details that painted a tragic portrait of her final moment. Jennifer was dressed in cozy pajamas, remnants of a life interrupted, while a vibrant children's book lay open nearby, its cheerful illustrations contrasting sharply with the grim reality of the scene. It was as though she had been preparing for a quiet morning at home, maybe even reading to her cat, Mr. Whiskers. But chaos had intruded, and now it felt the world was spinning out of control. Ethan's heart sank at the sight of her wrist, marred by dark, angry bruises, the only indications of the struggle she must have faced. A hairpin, glinting dully amidst the splatter of crimson, caught his eye. It had fallen from her disheveled hair, now set in disarray, hinting at a desperate fight for survival. He closed his eyes momentarily, taking a breath to steel himself. This was no ordinary response call. As the coroner arrived, the unyielding feeling of loss swept through him. A woman full of life and potential now lay lifeless, her dreams extinguished by violence. Ethan couldn't help but picture her in the classroom, surrounded by eager young learners. How would they react to the news? Who would tell them that their favorite teacher would never again read stories or embrace them with open arms? Just then, a familiar voice sliced through his thoughts. Detective Sarah Halstead, a seasoned investigator known for her unyielding resolve. She was the one who would lead the investigation, her sharp instincts honed by years of experience. Together, they would peel back the layers of this tragedy, drawing closer to the truth lurking beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic town. What started as a peaceful autumn morning had transformed into a catalyst for change, for fear, and for a deep exploration into the darkness that lay hidden in plain sight. The questions loomed large. Who would want to harm Jennifer Mills, and why? The heart of the case was beating wildly as they prepared to chase the shadows closing in around them. The crime scene. As Detective Sarah Halstead stepped into the chaotic scene, she brought with her a composure built from years of grappling with the remnants of human tragedy. The small bathroom, now transformed into a sanctum of sorrow, became the focal point for her instincts, a landscape of clues waiting to be unearthed. She gestured for Officer Briggs to step back, allowing the coroner's team to commence their meticulous work. The first task was securing the area, guarding against contamination of potential evidence. Sarah's trained eyes scanned the perimeter. Every detail, no matter how small, could lead to a breakthrough. A digital camera clicked rhythmically as evidence was documented. The angle of the blood splatter, the scattered remnants of Jennifer's belongings, and the despair that hung heavy in the air. Utilizing her notepad, she meticulously documented the specifics of the scene. What caught her attention first was the claw-footed bathtub. Its porcelain surface speckled with dried droplets of blood that traced a trail to where Jennifer lay. The unsettling image of a battle fought in this otherwise tranquil space drew her mind back to the observations Officer Briggs had made regarding the signs of a struggle. Then, she turned her attention back to the hairpin, a small yet poignant piece of the puzzle. It bore no clear fingerprints, but its presence raised the spectral question of who had been in the bathroom with Jennifer just moments before her life was snuffed out. Had she fought back against an intruder, or perhaps it was someone she knew, someone she trusted? Sarah knelt by the stained tile, heart heavy with each revelation. A towel lay crumpled on the floor, suggesting hastiness in its placement, as if Jennifer had been preparing to clean up after herself when her world turned upside down. The corners of her mouth tightened. The decor of a cozy home had transformed into the stage of a senseless battle, ripped from the pages of a horror novel. Outside, the sounds of the town thrummed on leaf blowers started, and school buses rolled down the streets, blissfully unaware of the darkness blooming within. Sarah felt a pang of frustration. She knew that, like the leaves falling from the trees, innocence and trust could be swept away in an instant. With each piece of evidence collected, a question emerged. Who had Jennifer fought against, and why had no one heard her screams? As the coroner prepared to take Jennifer's body away, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of urgency. Time was ticking away, and with it, the clues that might lead them to the truth, buried somewhere in the heart of Maplewood. The early investigation. With the crime scene secured and Jennifer Mills removed from her home in a respectful yet somber manner, Detective Sarah Halstead convened with Officer Briggs and a team of detectives. They gathered at a nearby precinct, the atmosphere thick with determination, as the enormity of the task ahead settled over them like a heavy cloak. First, We need to compile a timeline, Sarah instructed, commanding attention. Starting from Jennifer's last known movements, we can focus on her interactions leading up to the incident. They scoured existing reports and witness statements, piecing together Jennifer's routine. She was seen leaving Maplewood Elementary around 4 p.m. the previous day, her signature smile brightening the faces of her colleagues. That evening, she had plans with friends but canceled at the last moment, citing fatigue, a decision that now seemed foreboding. Had she felt unsafe? Did she sense something dark on the horizon? Let's reach out to her friends, see if she confided in anyone, Officer Briggs suggested, furrowing his brow in thought. And what about her family? We need to contact them before the news breaks. As they divided their tasks, Sarah's intuition drove her toward examining Jennifer's personal life. They combed through social media accounts and text messages, searching for any signs of distress or turmoil. Yet all they found were warm messages of support from friends and celebratory posts reflecting her passion for teaching. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting eerie shadows as the detectives ventured to Jennifer's housemates. Lucky for them, they were available and willing to talk. The young women lived in a nearby apartment complex and had been all too aware of Jennifer's life, often sharing dinners and dreams over late-night chats. "I never thought anything like this could happen to her," sobbed Mia, Jennifer's closest friend, as they sat together on a worn-out couch. She'd been acting a bit strange lately, a little anxious, a nagging feeling like something was off, but she wouldn't tell us what. Sarah leaned in, the weight of the world bearing down on her. "Did she mention anyone specific?" "No one," Mia replied, tears streaking her cheek. "But she thinks someone has been following Hirsch." She felt uneasy, like someone was watching. As they pressed further, searching for details, Sarah sensed a surge of urgency. If Jennifer had felt threatened, it was imperative to discover why and by whom. They had embarked on the first threads of a larger tapestry woven with secrets, fear, and an unanswered plea for help. Too often, they had seen the quiet struggles of intimate lives erupt into tragedy. They knew that this case would be no different. Townsfolk of Maplewood were about to face a harsh reality. Someone among them was harboring darkness that had taken root too close to home. The dead ends. As the investigation unfolded, the initial fervor began to give way to frustration. After days spent interviewing friends, family, and acquaintances of Jennifer Mills, Detective Sarah Halstead felt the gnawing sensation of dead ends closing in. Each conversation led to the same sad refrain. Jennifer was all light. She wore her heart on her sleeve and touched the lives of countless people. But as for any specific threats or potential suspects, the trail was growing colder by the hour. Sarah leaned against her desk, flipping through her notes. Time felt like a relentless wave, crashing against her resolve. Despite reaching out to the friends Mia had mentioned, no one could provide specifics on who might have been watching Jennifer. One friend had even commented on her social media posts, playfully joking about her paranoia. Yet, it was clear to Sarah that beneath the laughter, something darker lurked, an undercurrent of unease that curled around the community like fog, covering the ground at dawn. The tech analysts had scoured social media platforms, combing through messages, likes, and comments. But there was nothing concrete to indicate a stalker or an individual who had been harassing her. An ominous silence enveloped their findings, leaving Sarah and Officer Briggs isolated in a sea of uncertainty. It seemed as though the more work they put in, the less they discovered. Sarah decided to revisit the crime scene, hoping that one more look would spark a connection that had previously eluded her. Once inside the apartment, she walked the room again, cataloging the space anew. The broken vase caught her eye, peering closer as she noticed fragments just within reach of the hall that led to the bedroom. What had happened here? The main door remained ajar, and their forensic team had been careful not to disturb anything of value. Yet now, as Sarah stepped through the threshold of Jennifer's sanctuary, her heart raced. She scanned the surroundings decorated with colorful decorations and cheerful artwork. Everything was intentional and personal. It should have been a refuge, and yet it now felt burdened by violation. Nothing reeked of a forced entry. Locks were intact, and the windows had not been tampered with. Had the killer been welcomed in? Those pressing questions grew heavier in her mind as she envisioned a separation of lives. Had someone she knew harbored darker intentions behind a friendly facade? Every lead seemed to trail off into thin air, pushing the investigation into a grueling stagnation. Just as despair began to settle in, Sarah received a call that would alter their course. A neighbor had stopped by the precinct with a security camera footage from the night of the murder, an arrow of hope in a seemingly barren landscape. She could almost feel her heart beat louder in her chest. Perhaps this was the breakthrough they had been longing for. With a flicker of renewed determination, she set off, ready to confront whatever shadows were lurking in the frames of that video. The path could still twist and turn, but now they had a chance to illuminate the darkness enshrouding Maplewood. A break in the case. The moment Sarah Halstead stepped into the precinct meeting room with Officer Briggs by her side, anticipation crackled in the brisk air. The neighbor who had provided the security footage streamed it instantly onto the large display monitor, and the three of them watched, breath held, as the surveillance began to play out. At first, the footage showed the familiar facade of the neighborhood streets lined with gently swaying trees bathed in the soft glow of street lamps. Then, as they fast-forwarded to the early hours of the morning, Sarah's pulse quickened. In the frame, a shadowy figure emerged, slinking down the sidewalk leading to Jennifer's home. Officer Briggs exclaimed, pointing to the screen. Officer Briggs exclaimed, pointing to the screen. The figure approached Jennifer's front door, hesitating for a moment before raising a hand to knock. Then uncertainty overcame it. The figure stepped back into the shadow. The seconds ticked by like hours as they scrutinized the footage, trying to decipher nuances within the darkness. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Sarah's eye. Figure darted away, vanishing into the night after what seemed like only a moment of deliberation. Instinctively, she leaned closer to the screen. "Can you enhance that?" The tech analyst nodded, manipulating the video, sharpening the edges until details revealed themselves. The figure was donned in a hooded sweatshirt, obscuring their features. Yet as the camera captured them moving into the light, there was enough clarity to detect a flicker of familiar red, a distinctive backpack. "Do you see that?" Sarah guided Briggs' eyes back to the screen. "That bag looks like it belongs to a student from Maplewood High. I remember seeing it during drop-off. Daniel Fisher." Briggs replied, a trace of disbelief in his tone. "Of course. Jennifer mentioned him, a bright student, but troubled. She always said he had a fascination with her. Followed her home a couple of times." With renewed urgency, Sarah felt the pieces snap into place like a jigsaw puzzle. revealing a shocking image. We need to bring him in for questioning. If he was there that night, he might know more. As they gathered information on Daniel's whereabouts at the time of the murder, anxiety twisted like a coil in Sarah's chest. The community's innocence had already been cracked, but this revelation threatened to shatter it entirely. It was one thing to believe an outsider was responsible for the chaos, but confronting the reality that someone so young, perhaps someone struggling with unvoiced turmoil, could be at the center of such violence was far more chilling. Once the details were solidified, Sarah and Briggs made their way to Daniel's home. The innocence of Maplewood hung in delicate balance, and as they approached the modest property, Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of what lay ahead. With a deep breath, she knocked upon the door. Echo a prelude to the storm that was about to unfold. The past few days of uncertainty and darkness were about to either find resolution or plunge into further chaos as they sought out the truth, whatever it turned out to be. The suspect. Daniel Fisher's home was unassuming, a typical suburban residence with neatly trimmed hedges and children's toys littering the porch. Sarah Halstead's heart thundered in her chest as she approached, apprehension creeping in like the chill of the impending evening. Upon knocking, the door opened slowly, revealing a boy with tousled hair and anxious eyes, barely 17, caught between the remnants of adolescence and the harsh realities pressing in around him. Can I help you?" Daniel's voice trembled slightly, his unease evident. "Is Daniel Fisher here?" Sarah asked, her tone calm yet authoritative, making it clear they weren't here for casual conversation. "That's me," he replied, straightening up. "Daniel, I'm Detective Halstead, and this is Officer Briggs. We would like to ask you some questions regarding your whereabouts on the night of Jennifer Mills' murder." The mention of Jennifer's name struck him like a blow. Panic flickered across his face, swiftly masked by confusion. "Murder? What are you talking about?" "Please, come with us," Sarah said, her voice steady but firm. "We need to talk." Before they could respond, Daniel's mother hurried into the entryway, concern woven into the lines of her forehead. "What's going on? Is he in trouble?" "No trouble, ma'am," Officer Briggs interjected gently. "We're seeking some answers. Everything will be explained shortly." Unable to speak, Daniel merely looked between the two officers and his mother, helplessness washing over him. With a silent nod from his mother, he followed them out the door, his shoulders tensed. In the back seat of their cruiser, the reality of the matter began to settle upon Daniel as he sat in silence. "I haven't done anything wrong," he protested, the words spilling from him like a desperate prayer. "Then let's clear the air," Sarah replied, maintaining eye contact. "We have video footage showing you near Jennifer's house that night. You need to explain what happened." His face paled, his fingers fidgeted restlessly in his lap. I was just going to talk to her," he stammered. "I was worried she was upset after canceling our study session. I didn't think she'd want to see me. Why would she be upset?" Sarah pressed, sensing the core of something deeper beneath his nervous exterior. "She mentioned students had been harassing her online. She showed us the messages. It was awful. I thought that if I could just tell her I was there for her." His breath grew fast, emotion cracking his voice. "But when I knocked, there was no answer. I saw someone leaving, I swear. I didn't hurt her. Someone else was there." Officer Briggs interjected, leaning forward. "Who?" "I don't know. I just saw a silhouette. It all happened so fast," Daniel whimpered, tears brimming in his eyes now. The brevity of the revelation pressed in on them, laying bare the fragments of truth that shimmered in the shadow. Daniel Fisher was scared, but he was also entangled in a complicated web of affection and fear. Perhaps an obsession over a woman whose kindness had offered him a lifeline. With the pieces beginning to fit together, Sarah's instincts told her the truth lay somewhere in that murky, emotional landscape. As the drive continued toward the station, she realized they were leaving behind the innocence of childhood in pursuit of answers that were now stained red with the brutality of loss. Only time would reveal how deeply entwined Daniel was in the tragedy that had claimed Jennifer's life, and whether he was merely a witness in a far darker story yet to unfold. The trial. Months had passed since the haunting night when Jennifer Mills lost her life, and now the curtains rose on an entirely different stage, the courtroom. A sense of heaviness hung in the air, palpable and suffocating, as the community of Maplewood gathered once more, drawn together by grief and the quest for justice. Detective Sarah Halstead, now clad in a suit that matched her resolve, sat in the front row, her heart pounding as she faced the defendant's table, where Daniel Fisher sat, visibly nervous, his spirit crushed between the cold walls of justice. The once hopeful boy who had sought an audience with a teacher he revered was now accused of murder, an overwhelming weight of expectations lingering in the atmosphere as opening statements began. The courtroom was filled with the familiar faces of neighbors, colleagues, and friends, all united by the loss of Jennifer. She was a beacon of warmth, and now her absence carved a cold gap that seemed too great to reconcile. An artful arrangement of flowers, a gesture of remembrance, sat where Jennifer would have been, starkly juxtaposed against the solemn reality of the trial ahead. The prosecution outlined their case, painting a detailed picture of the evidence. The security footage, the frantic phone calls, and Daniel's own emotional turmoil. They argued that his obsession had crossed an insidious line. In the shadows of infatuation, the lead prosecutor intoned, something sinister took root. But the defense countered with a different narrative. Daniel was a troubled young man who had made a grave mistake, a misguided attempt to seek help for someone he admired deeply. He did not intend for this to end in tragedy, his attorney insisted, pleading for sympathy. He bears the scars of emotion, tangled in the complexity of youth, unprepared for the consequences of his action. As the trial progressed, testimonies echoed through the room. Friends recounted Jennifer's kindness and her fears, painting her as a compassionate soul who often took on the burdens of others. Daniel's own friends shared his struggles, his feeling of isolation, and his heartache at being misunderstood. The lines between right and wrong blurred in a cacophony of heartache, empathy, and remorse. But when Sarah took the stand, her voice unwavering, she transformed into a guardian of Jennifer's memory. She laid bare the evidence, the bruises, the hairpin, and the chilling silence that followed the atrocity committed against someone who meant so much to the community. Her words resonated with truth, reaffirming Jennifer's vibrant spirit and reminding everyone that she'd been more than simply a victim in a tragic story. She had been cherished. The jury would deliberate, grappling with the complexities of Daniel's involvement, and Sarah found herself consumed by a mixture of dread and hope. This trial was about so much more than punishment. It was about recognizing the fragility of life, the thin veil that separates admiration from obsession, and ultimately, the duty of a community to safeguard one another against darkness. As the verdict was announced, the air in the courtroom crackled with anticipation. Each heartbeat seemed to thunder with the weight of what was at stake. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder, the forewoman stated, her voice steady. The words echoed, resonating through the crowd, a mix of relief intertwined with sorrow. In that moment, Sarah realized their battle was not just with Daniel, but with the echoes of fear and misunderstanding that had taken residence in the heart of Maplewood. The journey toward healing would be long, but as they turned towards the future, the hope remained Olivia's subtle reminder that within the shadows, light could still flicker and that justice had been served, albeit in the harshest of realities. The aftermath. Maplewood awoke to an unsettling sense of normalcy in the weeks following the trial. The air was lighter, yet the shadows lingered, unfurling their tendrils through the streets as they adjusted to life after the verdict was rendered. The verdict had brought a measure of closure, yet the scars left by Jennifer Mills' murder were deep and indelible. Detective Sarah Halstead stood at the edge of the town square, watching the familiar hustle and bustle of daily life, resuming a subtle facade carefully stitched over the cracks of a community grappling with grief. Children played in the park, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. But Sarah couldn't shake the weight of sorrow lurking just beneath the surface. She had witnessed the depths of darkness that could reside within the most unassuming places, and now, in the aftermath, it felt like a specter still haunted Maplewood. As she turned away from the square, a collective meeting was scheduled for the teachers and parents at Maplewood Elementary. The atmosphere was thick with uncertainty and the desire for healing. Sarah had been asked to speak, a task she accepted with heavy reluctance. How could she encapsulate the stark brutality of loss while simultaneously providing comfort to those seeking solace? Inside the brightly colored school gymnasium, a somber assembly gathered. The walls adorned with artwork celebrating diversity and kindness. Holding the microphone, Sarah's voice quaked slightly at first, but the passion to honor Jennifer's memory surged within her. It's vital that we acknowledge the darkness that has touched our lives, she began, but we must also hold steadfast to the light Jennifer represented. She spoke about the importance of vigilance, nurturing open conversations with kids about their feelings, and encouraged the community to come together rather than retreat into silence. Her words were met with quiet nods, some parents dabbing at their eyes, while the young faces of children still innocent and bright listened intently. In the wake of such tragedy, they must be reminded of hope. As the meeting concluded, one young girl approached Sarah, her small hand tightly clenching a colorful drawing. "I made this for Jennifer," she said, eyes glistening with the sincerity of childhood. The drawing was filled with vibrant colors, a classroom, surrounded by flowers and smiling faces, where joy echoed like laughter through the halls. In that moment, Sarah felt a shift. A flicker of resolve ignited within her hope, persistently pushing against despair. She thanked the girl, even as they mourned. As a collective, they could carry Jennifer's spirit forward, ensuring her legacy lived on within the hearts of all who cherished. Meanwhile, Daniel Fisher sat in a juvenile detention center, grappling with the enormity of the reality that awaited him. He reflected on the trial, the friendships lost, and the love unrequited, caught in a labyrinth of regret. With time, his thoughts settled like stones in a garden, each symbolizing a lesson learned through pain. He vowed to make amends, maybe not to Jennifer, but to himself. and the world beyond these walls. As the seasons changed, so too did Maplewood. The leaves turned from green to gold and finally to bare branched silhouettes against the cold sky. The town slowly moved forward, preserving the memories of their beloved teacher while fostering a sense of unity, resilience, and strength through their shared sorrow. Months later, a bench was placed in the heart of the park, engraved with Jennifer's name a space where children gathered, laughter mingling with the whispering wind, as if her spirit danced within. Maplewood began to embrace a new chapter of harmony, of grief and celebration, forever intertwined as they carried her light into their everyday lives. In a town once overwhelmed by dark whispers, hope flickered anew. Reflection. As another autumn day gave way to dusk, Sarah Halstead found herself sitting on the newly installed bench in Maplewood Park. The air hummed with the sounds of families enjoying the remnants of daylight, children playing tag and laughing freely, creating a tapestry of life that felt both comforting and surreal. She cast her gaze across the playground, where vibrant colors danced against the fading light, an emblem of resilience, tinged with remembrance. Jennifer's absence lingered like a soft echo in the back of her mind. The countless memories of laughter, wisdom, and kindness stitched into the fabric of their community felt it a strange beauty. They had transformed their grief wall. The bench symbolized not just a farewell to a beloved teacher, but a promise to remain vigilant, to cherish one another deeply, an unspoken pact that the past, while painful, would guide their future. Sarah reflected on the ghastly darkness that had unfolded in a sleepy town, the journey that had brought them here, the complexities of human emotion, the raw hurt of loss, and the brave act of forgiveness swirled in her thoughts. In finding justice for Jennifer, they had also driven home the importance of understanding, compassion, and the need to communicate openly. Looking to the sky, painted with hues of lavender and gold, Sarah allowed hope to wash over her. The journey wasn't over. Maplewood had become a part of her heart, and she was committed to nurturing this fragile garden of memory. She would remain a guardian, ensuring that stories like Jennifer's would be told not only to honor those lost, but to remind the living of their duty to each other. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the leaves, Sarah felt the soft caress of a cool breeze, a reminder of the spirit that lingered in her beloved town. They would keep moving forward together toward a brighter tomorrow shaped by the souls they cherished and the lessons they learned.